This video is the first in my Nancy Drew 101 series, introducing Nancy and detailing the various iterations of the book series. Before I begin, please note that the Nancy Drew series, while vast and ever-changing, can be easily accessed by anyone, starting with any book, game, movie, or TV series. This explains how the series has evolved and become what it is today. Now, the first Nancy Drew book was published in 1930, making it over 90 years old, and the series has since grown to over 200 titles, with more being released each year. The Nancy Drew character has inspired generations of readers, and she continues to be a role model for young girls. So, if you've ever picked up a Nancy Drew Files book and wondered what made it different from the original series, this video is for you. First things first, who was our titular character Nancy Drew? Nancy remains more or less the same throughout all the iterations of the book, with a few details shifting throughout. For the most part, she's an 18-year-old woman with Titian or reddish blonde hair and blue eyes. She's conventionally attractive and rather tall at 5 feet 8 inches with a slender build. Nancy is an amateur detective and has the skills that would come with that: intelligent, observant, resourceful, curious, independent. And as the daughter of a well-connected lawyer, Carson Drew, Nancy is often called upon to help her father in his cases, or her clients find her through her father's connections. Nancy's mother died when she was young, but the family's housekeeper, Hannah Gruen, stepped in and acted as a surrogate mother figure. Her best friends are Bess Marvin and George Fane. She's usually dating Ned Nickerson, a slightly older frat boy at the fictional Emerson College. Occasionally in later books and games, Nancy and the Hardy Boys, Frank and Joe Hardy, will team up and help each other solve mysteries. The first books in the Nancy Drew series were titled the Nancy Drew Mystery Stories. These are most commonly seen as hardback books with yellow spines. However, they were also printed with blue and red hardcovers with white dust jackets, among other variations. Numbers 1 through 56 were published by Grosset and Dunlap between 1930 and 1979. Numbers 1 through 34 were all revised in the 1960s and 70s, with several reprints and cover redesigns since then. The revisions were said to have been done to modernize the stories and eliminate racist stereotypes. However, in some cases, such as The Mystery of the Lilac Inn, the revised edition bears almost no resemblance to the original text. And in many cases, the racist stereotypes weren't removed, just the non-white characters were. In these revisions, Nancy's age was also raised from 16 to 18 years old. Mildred Wirt Benson ghostwrote 23 of the first 30 books and is credited with molding the character of Nancy Drew into the independent, adventurous, girls-can-do-anything sleuth who is still beloved today. Many suggest that Mildred embodied the character of Nancy Drew, using her own experiences to craft the character. The next books in the Nancy Drew mystery stories are often referred to as the digests. Nancy Drew Mystery Stories number 57 through 175 were published by Simon & Schuster. Between 1979 and 1985, numbers 57 through 78, and then 1987 to 2001, numbers 79 through 159. In 1979, after a court battle between Grosset and Dunlap and the Stratemeyer Syndicate about publication rights, the next incarnation of the Nancy Drew Mystery Stories continued under its new publisher, Simon & Schuster, while Grosset and Dunlap retained the rights to publish the previous 56 novels. The Simon & Schuster books are notably paperback with more modern covers. They were referred to as the digest because of the new size of the books, whereas the first 56 books are all hardbacks. In 1985, the series went on hiatus while Simon & Schuster created a spin-off series, the Nancy Drew Files. The Nancy Drew Mystery Stories continued after the hiatus in 1987. Post-hiatus books were known for continuity errors and mentions of technology, which quickly made them seem dated to readers. The series ended for good in 2001, but then it was followed by the Nancy Drew Files. These were a modernized version of the Nancy Drew Mystery Stories that were made to compete with other popular teen book series of the time. These were published between 1986 and 1997, with 124 volumes published by Simon & Schuster. These books had a greater emphasis on adventure, romance, and malice. The idea for this series was actually tested in the last two books from the Nancy Drew Mystery Stories, number 77, The Bluebeard Room, and number 78, The Phantom of Venice, which made these two books read very differently from the previous 76. This was by far the most successful spin-off of the original series. Ned and Nancy were actually portrayed as an on-again, off-again couple, with Nancy having various other love interests throughout the series. Whereas the Nancy Drew mystery stories saw thefts and more minor crimes, the Nancy Drew files had Nancy following up on more severe crimes, like murders and at one point, the fate of an entire nation. In 1988, the Nancy Drew files spun off into the Super Mystery series with the Hardy Boys, who had also been updated in their own series, similar to the Nancy Drew files titled The Hardy Boys Case Files. They were canceled in 1997, though, in a mass cancellation of all mature-themed Nancy Drew and Hardy Boys spin-offs. Nancy Drew on Campus was published by Simon & Schuster between 1995 and 1998, overlapping with the Nancy Drew files. Nancy Drew on Campus was a 25-book spin-off of the Nancy Drew files, and in this series, Nancy follows Bess and George to Wilder University to earn her degree in journalism instead of going to Emerson College with Ned. Mysteries took a back seat in this series, often only showing up as secondary or even tertiary plot lines, with the main plot centering around very special episode teen issues seen in other young adult drama series, such as dating, drugs, rape, pregnancy, etc. In the first book, readers were asked to call a 1-800 number to vote on whether Nancy should ditch Ned or stick with him. They voted against Ned, and in the second book, Nancy and Ned broke up because Ned was too controlling. The series was discontinued in 1998 when all Nancy Drew and Hardy Boys spin-offs were canceled. However, ISBNs for books 26 through 30 have since been found, but those books were never published. Nancy Drew Girl Detective was published by Simon & Schuster under the Aladdin Books imprint from 2004 to 2012. This series was actually meant to be a modern replacement for the Nancy Drew mystery stories. One of the biggest changes for Girl Detective was that it was written from Nancy's first-person perspective. While the series was created to cope with the dropping sales of the original series, Girl Detective started strong, but sales were already declining by 2008 when Simon & Schuster did a soft relaunch and started releasing books as trilogies instead of individual issues. The series saw drastic changes in the main characters' personalities, including making Nancy less perfect and instead more clumsy and forgetful, which some thought made her more relatable, but others found the new Nancy to be airheaded. George became tech-savvy and sloppy and pessimistic. Bess was no longer overweight, but curvy, stylish, and flirty. The series was canceled in 2011 due to low sales, even though it was on the New York Times bestseller list when it was originally released. Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys Super Mysteries ran from 1988 to 1998 and again from 2007 to 2012. This series is based within the universe of the Nancy Drew files and the Hardy Boys Case Files. The crossover series had an original run of 36 books over 10 years. Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys would usually solve two separate mysteries that ended up being connected, which led them to team up by the end of the book. The books were mostly told from Nancy's point of view, and romantic tension between Nancy and Frank Hardy was teased throughout the series, but it was never acted on. The series was canceled in 1997 along with the Nancy Drew files, but it was started up again in 2007, taking place now in the universe of Nancy Drew Girl Detective and Hardy Boys Undercover Brothers. The series was originally written under the pseudonym Carolyn Keene, the name used for the Nancy Drew books, but on the second run, Franklin W. Dixon, the pseudonym used for the Hardy Boys books, was included as an author as well. The updated series is written in first person, just like Girl Detective, with the chapters alternating between Nancy, Frank, and Joe as narrators. The Nancy Drew Diaries was published by Simon & Schuster under the Aladdin imprint starting in 2013, and as of the publication of this video is still running with 24 books and a Christmas special. The Nancy Drew Diaries series was launched in 2013 as a replacement for Nancy Drew Girl Detective. The setting and characterizations were kept largely the same as the Girl Detective series, but Simon & Schuster moved away from the trilogy format that they had adopted through the majority of the previous run. The Diaries set out to fix several aspects of the Girl Detective series that were widely criticized. For example, Nancy and her friends didn't rely as heavily on technology as they did in Girl Detective, but it is to be noted that it took several books in the series before technology was used in a realistic manner. The stories in the Diaries series have been described by some readers as sexist, keeping Nancy's opportunity for adventure and excitement to a minimum, especially when they're compared to the original run. One book blogger even went so far as to say that both the plot and Nancy's character are bland, and that many of the stories contain a seemingly recycled sabotage plot. Now, there is a Young Reader series, and the Young Reader series is far easier to follow as all three iterations of it are more or less the same, with the most notable changes being the style of the cover illustrations. The first one was the Nancy Drew Notebooks, and that ran from 1994 to 2005. Nancy Drew and her friends are portrayed as 8-year-old children in third grade solving mysteries targeted at children in a younger age bracket. The series title comes from the small blue notebook where Nancy keeps track of clues in the story. Each book ends with a moral lesson learned through the mystery. The series ended, though, after 69 books in 2005. It was followed by Nancy Drew and the Clue Crew, a relaunch of the Nancy Drew Notebook series, which ran from 2006 to 2015. And book number 10, Ticket Trouble, was nominated for a Scribe Award in the category of Best Young Adult Original. The Nancy Drew Clue book series started in 2015 and is still running as of the publication of this video. The Clue book series is a continuation of the Clue Crew series, with 18 books as of June 2023, encouraging readers to keep track of their own ideas, identify clues, and solve the mysteries as they read. Looking back, the Nancy Drew series has had a remarkable journey over the past 90 years. The series has managed to evolve for modern readers, adapting to changing times and audience expectations, and keeping Nancy Drew a relevant figure from 1930 to 2023. From the original Nancy Drew mystery stories to the more modern Nancy Drew Diaries, each series brought its own unique twists and interpretations. And while the series isn't without its criticisms, the enduring popularity of the Nancy Drew character has remained a testament to her timeless appeal. So whether you're an avid fan of the original hardback books, a follower of the Girl Detective series, or a young reader enjoying the Nancy Drew Clue book series, the spirit of Nancy Drew lives on, captivating hearts and minds as she continues to solve mysteries and inspire us all. As you journey through the various iterations of Nancy Drew's adventures, remember that you can start with any book, game, movie, or TV series. Nancy Drew's world is vast and welcoming to newcomers, so embrace the journey, dive into the mysteries, and join the legacy of this timeless detective. Follow me for more details on other incarnations of Nancy Drew in film, TV, video games, and history. And until next time, toodaloo, Nancy Drew.